We on?
We're on. So funny.
Talk the walk with every sip and laugh. Coffee's the fuel, martini's the craft. Conversation swirling in the cool night air. Talk the walk, we're going so.
Good morning, Ellen.
Good evening. We're here.
We made it. I wish I had a martini.
I could use it tonight. That's right.
That's right. For those of you that are joining us, welcome to Talk the Walk. This is the first time, Alan, we've ever been late. I don't know what your relationship is with time. You seem like a very punctual bloke.
Oh, yeah. I'm always early.
Yeah, me too. I've never missed a flight. And so I'm 2 or 3 minutes late. It's like, oh, my goodness. Hey, Alan, how's your week been?
Well, thank you. Happy weekend. We're heading for New York tomorrow.
Oh,
so taking my wife to see Hugh Jackman, one of your countrymen.
Yes.
From the second row, so I'll have to restrain her.
I've heard the show is incredible. Speaking of Aussies, I mean, Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban, that's been the big news of the week.
I have a connection to that.
Tell me.
My daughter went to private school here with the mother of the guitarist who he has been cheating with.
Whoa.
How about that for a small world?
That is a small world. Yeah, okay.
No, I don't.
I haven't really been reading too much about it. I didn't know that he was cheating. I didn't even know that.
Apparently she learned of it, and I don't know why on earth he would cheat on Nicole Kidman, but what do I know?
I know. Interesting. Oh, well, Hugh Jackman,
Yeah.
right? I want to actually show a something that you posted on Facebook the last time you were in Manhattan. I've actually got it here that I'll queue up, see if this works. Alan, I don't let's see if I can make this image a little bit bigger. Yes. So, Alan, you posted this. And if you're listening in, Alan, do you want to share what's going on in this image?
Well, as I said, I'm the chief strategist and advisor to this dog walking company, and I suggested that they expand. And so they expanded to small kids. They use the same process. You see that they're all leashed together, and the woman in the rear would be there with the dogs to pick up poop. And so there was no technological change, no capital investment. Now, they on their own tried to expand to cats, and of course that didn't work, and that's why they needed me.
Oh, I love it. I really, honestly, I laughed for a while, and I've shared that with many friends on socials. So thanks for.
I'm a generalist, Leanne. You know that I'm a generalist.
You are, is that all? Is that basically consulting 101? What you just did?
Oh yeah, I mean that's you just have to think about substituting, other things for what you're already good at.
Yeah, agree. And we've got Dee Dee in the house. Dee Dee's checking in from beautiful farm in Idaho. Lots of Highland cows here. Great to have you here. Dee Dee, every time you join us, you're in a new place or even on a new continent. Now, Alan, today's topic is the hidden power of quitting. And obviously this can apply across many different mediums. It can mean firing a client. It can mean quitting what you're working on that maybe not be that isn't working. I guess the question I have for you to kick off is, why does quitting get such a bad rap? We're always taught it's a bad thing to quit. What's your take on that?
Well, the pejorative term is a quitter. You shouldn't be a quitter. And the trouble is that people don't realize that sometimes you have to cut your losses. The reason that some people lose all their money gambling is they don't know how to cut their losses. And some people begin something and their ego is so sensitive and dangerously weak that they don't want to quit because their ego will take a beating. So I have a preventive action here I want to suggest. And my preventive action, I'm a contrarian, right?
Yeah.
If you want to know when to stop, it's better to ask yourself when not to start. And I'm going to tell you when not to start.
That's good.
I've got five reasons here. Do not start on a project or an entity or anything if you have little interest in the subject matter. I mean, if you want to, let's say I want to do pro bono work for a nonprofit, find a nonprofit whose work you believe in, not something where you don't believe in it. Second, don't start if there's very little learning. It's not just about revenue. Unless you learn, you won't grow. And if you won't grow, you won't be more valuable and your revenue will be hurt. The third thing is there's got to be room for growth, personal growth, financial growth, emotional growth, and so forth. Fourth, don't start if the revenue is poor, if the income is low. Don't start if you've made some deal where you're not going to make much money. And then finally, the converse of that, don't start if there's excessive labor. So what I'm suggesting to you is if you think of these 5 criteria as a litmus test, you'll avoid quitting because you don't start in the first place. Because, you're right, Leanne, people get a certain reputation for quitting, even when they quit when they should be quitting. A lot of people should be quitting their jobs, for example, and they don't. A lot of people should be leaving marriages, and they don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of this, maybe there's a link with people pleasing. Like people want to be helpful to others, and so they jump in. And like I've been guilty of this, where it's like, oh, I'd love to help you on that, and it's so easy just to let that fly out of your mouth, and then you think about it overnight, and you think, I really shouldn't have said that. So what do you do in that moment? Like, how do you stop doing what I do and just like blurt out? Because it comes from a good place of wanting to be of service. Then the 24-hour test is like, that was silly.
I'll give you the preventive and the contingent. The preventive is, I just had a meeting about this. Several of my clients start by asking themselves, can I help them? And the answer is always yes. Of course you can help them. You're talented. You've got the range. You can invent things. But that's not the question. The question is, what's in it for me? And I don't mean that selfishly. I mean, is there learning? Is there growth? Is there a little labor so you can maximize your discretionary time? So the preventive action is to ask a different question. Not can I help, but what's in it for me? The continuation is if you blurt out, what you said. Oh, yes, I can help you. And then you realize, whoa, this is a big commitment. I'm not sure I like these people and so on. Then you have to say, on reflection, I'm not the right person for you. I can't help you as much as others can. And I can make some recommendations about the kind of person you should look for. So it's in their self-interest not to pursue it with you.
I love that reframe and how you've used language very cleverly to then actually be of service. So you're not really letting them down. You're going, hey, there's someone else that could be better for you, and I'm going to help you find that person. I think the quitting thing as well, sometimes when we commit to something up front, we don't really know what it's going to look like. You alluded to labor intensity, right? So you think, all right, this project, surely I can operate as an advisor, and then somehow you talk about scope creep a lot. Then it ends up becoming something that is tiresome. What's the preventative action on that? Like, how do you, because sometimes a lot of this, we're trying to predict the future. We don't really know what a project might look like.
Well, we have to be more pragmatically curious. In other words, someone says, look, can you help us do this? I can. Now, let me just say we have 4 sites. That's fine. I don't mind going to different sites. Well, it turns out that 3 of their sites, are in, Patagonia and Liechtenstein and Malaysia. And so suddenly you're traveling around the world for this. So you have to be more intellectually curious and say, where are your sites? Do they all need this at the same time? And I think that we shouldn't take things for granted. We tend to accept things because we want the money so bad.
Yes.
So you have to get off that money kick because no matter what the pay is, if you're miserable, it's not worth it.
I know. And I think we're more likely to commit. You talk about consultants going through like a famine and a feast. And so it's typically when you're at the famine that you're like, I will just take anything on that has any dollar figure. And then so what tends to happen then is that you start getting busy and you start, obviously, you have a bit of remorse around taking that on as well. Do you think, the famine and feast part has something to do with that? And what do you do in that instance? Like, would you?
Well, if you take something in the famine mode, it's going to restrict you from taking things to get to the feast mode because your time will be taken up.
Yeah.
So, I think, you don't have, it's not an on-off switch. You don't have to stop entirely. So, for example, there's a temporary quit. I will admit here freely, people will be surprised, but I collect stamps, United States postage stamps, right from the first one in 1847. I have a very advanced collection. Wow. However, about 20 years ago, I sat down, I said, boy, do I have a lot to do. Now I have to work on my stamps. And I said, wait a minute, this is supposed to be a hobby. What do I mean work on the stamps? And I put all the stamps away for 10 years. And when I was 50, I took them back out, put them in more modern albums and started collecting, and I still do. That was a temporary stop. You can stop partially. if you're a fanatic about the car and you clean every aspect of the car and you want to make it show worthy and you say, I can't take this anymore, then just wash it and stop cleaning the engine, right? That's stop. You can sometimes need help to stop. I think the most obvious example of that is Alcoholics Anonymous, where you sponsor. And so in that difficult, addictive situation, all the pressure isn't on you. And similarly, you can get help with someone to stop eating. You can get help with someone to, stop certain tics you have and so forth. And I think you have to sever yourself emotionally from what you're doing. I think a lot of times people refuse to quit because it's emotionally rewarding. But if it's unimportant and it's emotionally rewarding, that's an addiction. Now, my addiction is Angry Birds. And my wife's addiction is chocolate. But, heroin and cocaine and fentanyl, those are also addictions.
Yeah.
So we have to break ourselves off emotionally sometimes and get a different kind of pleasure.
And I think sometimes that's where you need like an external sounding board to question what you're doing. I remember the first time we were coaching and I was running a membership, like a monthly membership. It was like $20 a month, and I'd had, I think like 30 or 40 people were in it. And for me, I was like, emotionally involved in that. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, Leanne? And when the second you asked me that, I was like, yeah, what am I doing? So you just have to, have trusted sources that you can talk to sometimes about things that are maybe not in the best interest of your business.
My wife and a friend of hers put a little business together out of their homes, our homes, where they made sweatsuits with lettering on it, the person's name or whatever, and they made these themselves. So one day I watched my wife, and off and on for the entire day, she makes this little cube, just a little cube, and she's putting decorations on it. The next day she's still working on it and so forth. And on the third day she says to me, I finished it. What do you think? I said, how much are you going to sell this for? She said, $2. That was an I Love Lucy routine. I can't afford you to have your own business.
Yeah. But sometimes, I love that you talk about the stamp collection, because that's the stuff that, that it fuels you. But I also really like that phrase, a temporary stop, temporarily quitting, because I think we do think in these binary finite terms, like if I quit, it is game over. And then what comes with that is like this self-talk, like, oh, I'm not a completer, I don't follow through. But it's okay to take a pause.
Well, and you know who some of the worst people are in terms of not taking a pause? People who are fanatics about exercise. And so they've got to run 10 miles every day. They've got to spend 90 minutes in the gym. They've got to be on the Peloton and so forth. And it's one thing to keep your health and your sort of emotional health as well taken care of. But it's another thing when you do it because you're afraid not to do it. You're afraid that you're a failure if you don't do it every day. You can't skip a day. And, that's not good.
No. Dee Dee is sharing, this is your best podcast so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dee Dee. That's very nice.
That's really nice. We've had a lot of really strong conversations here, so I appreciate that. I know we're talking about work, but what about just general ideas and projects, and maybe even marketing initiatives that consultants might take on? They might write weekly newsletters. They might podcast frequently. It's maybe high labor for them. How do you know when to stop flogging an idea? Because I guess a lot of the time we hear people say, just be consistent, and you feel like at one point there's going to be like this point where then it goes exponential. But how do you know that time?
Well, first of all, you can't be afraid to quit things, even if they've been successful in the past.
Yeah.
I have a lot of things I stopped doing because I wasn't making as much money, or they weren't as much fun, or I wasn't getting enough people easily, or the times had changed. And so I think you have to be willing to give those things up and look to do something else. And I also think that you talk about flogging. That's really a good word. You know? Well, sometimes it's a matter of, oh, gee, this is my methodology. These are my approaches. I know they're really good. They've worked over here. Well, it doesn't mean they'll always work. And it doesn't mean everybody thinks the same thing. I think a sign of real health and a sign of progress is being willing to say, I have to let this go. And I'll give you an example. I think this is universal in every country. There's a thing in the schoolyard called monkey bars. You hold on with two hands. You're supposed to traverse the monkey bars, right? Well, you can't traverse the monkey bars unless you let go with one hand. So you can't reach out unless you let go. And if you never let go, you'll never reach out, you'll never progress to the other side. And what happens is so many people hold on till their knuckles are white, and then they fall down, and they're not on the monkey bars anymore.
It's a really great analogy because I think it's easy to quit something that we know isn't working. It's when it's kind of in that state where you think, I'm getting some good feedback on this, I'm making some progress, it's been quite successful. I think those are probably the harder things to quit because you just don't know if it's, you're still learning and getting growth and getting traction, or if it's just not a good idea. Like it's
That's right.
hard.
You have to watch your feedback sources because
Yeah.
you've seen this as much as I have. You'll be at some kind of event and somebody's speaking, and people will say, "You were great. That was fabulous. You should be on TV." And really, they were terrible.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to tell them the truth. They want to protect their ego because they're projecting. I wouldn't want to be told the truth, but it really harms them because they should be giving up on something, and now they're encouraged to continue.
So where do you get your feedback sources from? Like, it's going back to, I guess it's people that you trust. How do you figure that out? Like who are your trusted sources?
Well, I'll talk about receiving and giving. The receiving side is, choose people you trust who will tell you the truth and who have told you the truth in the past because they know that's in your best interest. On the giving end, never ever give feedback out of pity. Give feedback out of empathy, but never. Because if you feel sorry for someone, you're going to try to boost their spirits. But if you're really empathetic with someone and you emotionally and experientially and intellectually sort of know where they are, feel what they feel, then you can say, "Hey, I know how you're feeling, and let me tell you, I've been there myself, and here's what I think you have to do." So it's whether you're acting out of really respect for the person or just pity, which is not respect.
Yeah, that's a really good differentiator as well. So let's just say you do decide to stop or pause, and it might be like a public project that you've been working on. How do you communicate that? Like, is it important to communicate that to your clients, your audience, your community?
You do it honestly. When I've had programs that were scheduled a couple of months out, and I didn't get critical mass. It wasn't the revenue so much as the learning dynamic. So I figured, I need 20 people for the learning dynamic, and I had 8. I would tell the 8 people who signed up, "Hey, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's the time of the year or lack of interest in my stuff, but I don't have critical mass, and I don't want to put you through that. So if they paid me, I return the money, and I say I'll let you know if I do this again." So that's happened to all of us. So I don't think it's any shameful kind of thing. Sometimes we misjudge. Sometimes it's the wrong time of year, but we have to admit it.
Yeah, and I like that because you're just being honest. But again, I'm sure your self-worth didn't go down just because you couldn't get the numbers for this certain point of time, in the calendar.
No, I felt I had another free day.
Yeah, I love how you optimize for time. I do have I guess peers, friends that they want to run events, but the fear of not getting numbers is what holds them back from even doing it. And they kind of overthink it. They want to do more market research. What's your tip for them? Because they're not even getting to the start line, right?
Well, you can't be afraid to finish your plan for something, and then you see if your plan's going to work. If it's not working, maybe you can adjust it. But if you adjust it and it doesn't work, or you can't adjust it, then you have to say, "Okay, this didn't work." And you have to be honest with yourself. I mean, let alone other people not being honest with you. If you can't be honest with yourself, you have a huge problem. I remember I was in collaboration long ago with this firm that published a couple of my books, and this was the nascent start of the $1 Million Consulting College. It was one day, but it was it's sort of the germ, and so they invited people. They had these magnificent lists, and I was the content. We were in a Marriott in Boston, and it was $1,000 a person, which was a lot. And about 45 minutes before, nobody's there, and they're pacing the halls, and I'm reading a book, and they said to me, "Well, how can you just sit there?" I said, "What do you want me to do? Prepare? I mean, everything is set. It's out of our control now.
Yeah.
What was in our control, we've done. This is out of our control."
Yeah.
And they wanted 40 people, and eventually 80 people showed up. They had to bring in more chairs. It was crowded as hell. Nobody cared. And it was a tremendous success, and we ran 3 or 4 more of them after that. but I didn't lose the psychic energy. I didn't have the stress that these guys had worrying about this. My feeling was if it didn't work, it didn't work. We'll go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and I think you're very good at that. It's almost like kind of Buddhism, like non-attachment to what the outcome is. I don't know if you describe yourself that way, but you always talk about being light on your feet. And I'm curious, and I've got this question around a sunk cost, because like when you invest a lot in something, a lot of resources, time, energy in something, again, it's really hard to then stop. You kind of want to keep going. But I guess you talk about being light on your feet. You always pre-validate ideas up front. You know, you try to sell tickets before you even book a venue. Is that sort of your way of managing sunk cost?
Yeah, a lot of people I coach tell me they don't want to go forward with something till they finish the content. And I tell them, forget the content. What you have to do is the marketing. And so I market. I don't sign a venue. I put out the idea. I don't even know what the content's going to be, but I know what the idea is. I say, here's the results you're going to get. I do this all the time.
Yeah.
And when I get critical mass, then I'll develop the content. You've seen this, on my forums. Somebody say, Alan, why don't you do something on self-esteem? And I'll say, well, get 12 people and I'll do it. And I do nothing else. They say, I have 12 people. I say, okay, here's the link, pay. And then I market it because I know I can do it with 12 people. I've done a lot of programs, high-end programs, where one person does the whole thing. That's the dynamic.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think our last talk the walk was on creating a community. So if you can go back into on the YouTube and playlist and find that as well. As we wrap up, what do you think, or what do you wish more consultants would quit immediately?
Well, I think they should quit social media.
Really?
I think that they should. Social media is a time dump. I mean, the reason I'm there is that I really can't critique something I'm not part of. And I have, otherwise it's like sour grapes. And I have memberships and I have awards and recognition from societies, but I'm in the societies not for that. I'm there so I can critique them as a member and not as an outsider. I know what's going on. But social media is a huge time dump. I think there are very few people, Leanne, who can spend the correct amount of time on social media and move on. Many of them roped in, and it's like the La Brea tar pit city, you just keep sinking. I think another thing that they should give up is thinking that the way to be successful is to raise fees. The way to be successful is to raise value, and the fees will follow. And they need to give up the thinking, this sort of monetary, selfish thinking that I need to make, $1.5 million this year. What they should be thinking about is I need to maximize my value so more and more people hear about me and come to
I
me.
love that. Yeah. How do I be more valuable? And actually, yeah, even the other day, actually, you mentioned Peloton before. I'm a keen Peloton evangelist, but they sent an email. They're raising their monthly membership, but in that email, they described all the extra things and all the extra value that they're offering the community. And I thought that was great. Not even a problem for it was a price of an extra coffee, like $6 extra a month, but
yeah,
they communicated that really well.
I have a Friday cartoon on my site every week, and I had an artist when I started it, and out of the blue, he said, I'm going to raise your fees. And I said, on what basis? He said, well, I just think it's time to raise fees. So I fired him. I got another cartoonist, because there were a lot of cartoonists out there. They're commodities. So this guy is great. And he says to me, listen, Alan, I want to discuss doing the cartoon in color instead of black and white. I said, I didn't think of that. That would be great. He said, I'll have to charge you more. I said, no worries, do it.
Yeah. Yes.
He's a marketer.
Yes. Amazing. Hey, Alan, this again, it goes super quick. Thank you so much for this one. Dee Dee calls it the best live stream that we've done, the best Talk the Walk so far. So
here's my last comment. It's time to quit when you run out of time.
Yes, absolutely. Cheers to that, Alan. Hope you have a lovely afternoon, and thanks for joining us